Hey everybody, woman on Nextdoor asked me a question, asking for my opinion regarding Barbara Lee's planned, supposed run for mayor of Oakland. My thought is that, first of all, it's great that people are really engaged simply because of the idea that the great United States Congresswoman would even think of running for mayor. Now, she hasn't said she's going to do it yet, but she's expected to, according to my sources, expected to do so. Especially announced that she's going to do it this coming week. Great. But Barbara Lee alone will not solve Oakland's problem. I'm just saying this, okay? Oakland's specific problem is that it has people working for it that don't understand what they're doing. It doesn't matter, and I'm going to be more specific in what I mean. They don't know tax increment financing. They don't understand how to structure multivariate legislation that accomplishes more than one objective at once. We used to do that. They're too interested in power and control without understanding what it is they want to control or have power over. Now, why society has come to this point is a great question. I very bluntly believe a lot of it has to do with the allowance of recreational drugs in our society. I'm not saying I'm anti-recreational drugs, because it's better to have them out there where people can access and use them if they choose to do so than jail them, because too many people have been wrongly incarcerated for possession of marijuana that was as small as dust on a pinhead. So we got that out of the way, but in getting that out of the way, we opened, I argue, a Pandora's box of problems with our productivity and relationships. And I believe that this ability to sort of tune out has made us lethargic. It has made us less desirable of understanding each other. And it has overall, and this gets back to the civic problem, made us less interested in trying to absorb complex thought, ideas. And I reached this point reluctantly because I can't think of another reason why we're in this situation. But then you look around at the impact recreational drugs has on people, and you have to say, hey, wait a minute. To what degree has this seeped into government operation? And we have to really ask the hard question. We haven't done that, not in the Oakland context. Why is morale so bad? Why aren't things getting done? Why is it that grants aren't being responded to on time? It's one thing to point a finger at one person, but really, I could turn around and say, well, hey, how come there isn't someone else there that cares enough to say something? Okay? And then, of course, there are the high housing costs. And high housing costs in Oakland and California have really caused public officials to focus more on what is good for them as individuals rather than the city. Because they're doing everything they can to maintain their job. They're trying to figure out how to increase their pay. They're working, one would think they're working longer hours. But from what I understand, in this remote work environment, you have people who are, they say, taking these trips on cruises, maybe working a grand total of 2 days a week. It's very difficult, if not impossible, to monitor what they do when they do it, because we don't have the proper systems built in. And I argue even further that the situation we have now with remote work in the Oakland context, and look, I'm a big fan of remote work, all right? But I'm simply explaining to you the downsides of remote work as we have practiced it in Oakland. And I think this applies around the country too. But and I've worked in a remote fashion for the most of my adult life. I'm quite used to being on the clock when nobody's around. But that doesn't speak for everybody. And the vast majority of people who are doing remote work now were forced into it because of the pandemic. But what I'm getting at is this. It's harder to police what a person does. And I believe it set the climate for the Oakland ransomware attack of 2023. I really believe that. Because it's known that if you are not able to police what your people are doing at home, you don't know if some kid can get around an open file and download something or mess around and break a password, or you don't know if the worker could be cutting a side deal with some hacker to give that person information they need and collect money on the side for themselves. How would you know? How would you know that that didn't occur? Because I believe it has. And yet we still have a situation where, I remember I was interviewing Renea Webb, who was chief of staff to Oakland Mayor Shane Tao. She said that very often she was one of the only, if not the only person actually in City Hall. That's frightening, because it begs the question, wait a minute, who was there, if anybody, in management positions to watch anything? What were they doing? Okay? So the big crisis we have is a crisis of government that's fallen on the backs of Oakland residents, many of whom need rental assistance to maintain their places. Many haven't gotten them. How else do you explain the fact that Oakland's homeless population has risen 9% in the last 2 years? 9%. Think about it. 9%. By contrast, the county of Alameda has went in the opposite direction, down. So we have to ask how we're policing ourselves in Oakland government. What are we doing to make sure we're getting the job done? And how can we, if we're going to do remote work, how can we design a software service system to make sure we're doing it effectively? Maybe that includes telemetry to locate where we're at. I think we're going to have to do that. We need to bite the bullet and get our government in line. Because I don't care if it's Barbara Lee or Lee Pence, the actor, or anyone, any personality. The simple fact of the matter is, you can't have an effective government if the workers don't want to work. And right now, in a number of cases in Oakland, we have a situation where the workers either don't want to work or don't feel like working, or have an incentive not to work. And I'm not trying to put down the worker, but I'm saying that this is a problem that people don't want to talk about because they don't want to be perceived as putting down the worker. I'm not doing that, but I am putting the problem out there. And let's face it, folks, something is wrong. You know it, and I know it. You know it, and I know it. Something is wrong. So we really need to get that out of the way now. As far as Barbara herself, a mayor is supposed to be a symbol of hope, not necessarily the person that has the answers. But in today's highly technical society where people prize themselves on having the answer, right? You want that mayor to be able to do that. Well, I don't think Barbara is that person, but I do think Barbara can excite and ignite enough people to be those answer folks for her. All right. What Barbara needs to do is sound a call to action, and she needs to be unafraid to think big. We need a big project. We don't need small ball. We don't need base hitters. We need someone. Barbara, has to be that someone. If she's going to be that someone who's not afraid, not just to see the big picture, but to say, we need to change the big picture for ourselves, and then point the direction. She needs to go out and meet with the CEOs like Dan Gilbert of Rocket Mortgage and get him to build in Oakland. She needs to be about bringing builders to Oakland who will build businesses, but also build affordable housing. And then she needs to provide the subsidy via tax increment financing to make those subsidies available. And then she needs to bring sports back to Oakland. Barbara needs to rebuild the city of Oakland. And the vision should be a 24-hour active, walking, safe Oakland. That's it. In Oakland, where I can go out at 1 o'clock in the morning, eat, and hang out, and not fear that I'm going to be harmed or attacked or anything else. That should be the objective. And I think it's achievable. I really do. I also think we need about 400 robots. I'm serious about that. We need patrol robots that can patrol the business improvement districts, residents where there's a high elderly population where they haven't felt safe. Robots that are capable of apprehending people, stopping them, gassing if necessary. I know that sounds cold, but look, we don't have enough officers. And with technology being what it is, we got to get ahead of the possibility that the criminals may have robots. Think about it. But there should be, along the business improvement district streets, robots going back up and down and patrolling, of the four-wheel variety with arms and everything. I can just zoom in and go in and stop attackers and act as a simple deterrent, saying, hey, what are you doing here? And then call the police and have the police come. But if police can't come, then be capable of taking action themselves. All right. I'm going to think more about this as far as Barbara. There's a lot more to consider. So what do you think? I think Barbara has to be the figurehead of change and recovery, but we have to straighten out Oakland's governance problem. And I mean, it's personnel governance problem. I see ya.